So 5 minutes after, we'll go ahead and just cover a couple of anticipated ground rules for discussion. And hopefully this will be a great opportunity to answer any questions, go into details that you may have interest in learning more about. And we'll have time for a little Q&A after I just go through a quick review. But I want to focus us first on discussing about the first week of modern product leadership. So I just want to open up and say that I'm really excited to have all you here and to talk and hear from you and learn from you. This is building these courses on edX has been a life-changing experience and an opportunity to share a passion, especially around Agile and product that I've had personally my whole life, and that a lot of my friends and I have kind of been through a couple of journeys. So you get in this course a few of my stories as we get on a little bit further. If you've ever taken my Agile course series, that is a very personal course. It kind of goes through my life up until the point of delivering that, but also it provides a lot of great examples. The goal of this course, and what I'm most proud about this course, is that, in my opinion, this is a course that I think can be a wonderful intro to being a product leader of any small team to say like 5 to 10 up until a team of 20 to 50, because it teaches you the techniques at the team level, at the program level about how to lead products, and then also gets into some concepts for scaling and leadership, which are really important. So without any further ado and preamble, let's dive into week one. So in week one, we were talking about defining leadership, traditional leadership, modern leadership. Probably my favorite lesson of the week is that one, modern leadership, Agile, and then modern product leadership. So we'll go one by one, and at the end of each one of these slides, we'll just stop and ask questions. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the chat. And as you see here, we've got Fabio is my co-pilot. He's helping to make sure that we're fielding questions. And so he has total permission to interrupt me in the middle if we have a lot of discussion going on. So we start off with these two definitions of leadership, one from Susan Ward and the other from Dwight D. Eisenhower. And right off the bat, we're talking about the duality of this idea of what is leadership. Leadership could be the concept of facilitating a group towards a mutual goal, or it could be one of getting someone else to do something you want done. And for those of you who have completed the week, you'll immediately be able to identify two different mindsets and approaches to leadership here. But when we talk about leadership versus management, the quote that is oftentimes most cited is that by Peter Drucker, where management is doing things right and leadership is doing the right things. And another really great dichotomy to kind of set up what we're talking about with leadership. Before this course in the series on product management, there's a whole one about data science and agile systems engineering. It's much more management heavy, but frankly, I don't like distinguishing, as you'll see here in a minute. So what leaders really do. So with leadership, right, we talk about setting the direction, kind of the vision, aligning people by showing how this matters to them and also impacts what it is that they do in their lives, and then motivating, inspiring them at a personal level to achieve higher levels of productivity. And with management, it's all about figuring out how to get there, planning and budgeting, organizing the staff and teams, and then controlling and solving for problems along the way. But in reality, these overlap to form an execution opportunity. And that's kind of the philosophy that we have, is that you need both. So let's stop there for a moment and ask any questions about the first lesson that came up when you were watching it that you really wanted to address. Okay, that one's pretty easy. Feel free to interrupt. Now we get into some meat with traditional leadership. So we talk about the fact that leadership's been studied basically since we had major systems. Yeah, we should do the things right, do the right things right to hit the goal. So we've been studying leadership since we've had major organizations of people. Frankly, it's been since the beginning of time that we've been studying leadership to a large degree. But in the management world, it's been since the introduction of major people systems with the Industrial Revolution, followed by the major world wars at the beginning of the 20th century. And there are all these theories of leadership, but they kind of center around this belief that there is a leader, and the leader has either traits that make them very followable. They exert influence over those on their team. They have a desire or wish that they want others to also take on as their own. And the result will be some form of transformation. So that transformation means that people will become greater because of a leader. And so there is the trait theory, which continues to pervade, and it's what we all talk about all the time. Natural born leader. A lot of it is, I think, rooted in some temporary cultural assumptions that aren't necessarily true. But we'll get into the reasons why. But at the same time, these have been diffused and reduced as the list of items that supposedly make a great leader according to trait theory, where leaders are born, not made. They kind of wrap up as a leader should be intelligent, self-confident, determined to get things done, have great integrity, and be very good at the social skills, which is fine. I mean, I think that in general, those are things that we all want as people to be effective. I think a lot of that also aligns with happiness. So, modern theory has its own approach on this, but that's where kind of the discussion usually starts. And one of my favorite writers about multiple forms of intelligences, I'm sure many of you have read him, is Daniel Goleman. He wrote this fantastic book, Primal Leadership, which goes over these different styles of leadership: commanding, pace setting, democratic, affiliative, coaching, visionary. And while it's super archetypical and kind of boxing, it's very effective for just kind of quickly identifying and labeling what's your approach right now. In the article, it was kind of like picking the right golf club for wherever you happen to be on the golf course. And I think that there is an argument that different styles are needed at different times. But the idea here is that it's kind of both a trait and a skill, that you can develop the skill, but you also need some underlying emotional intelligence to achieve it. Now, a really fantastic tool developed out of the 1960s is the 7 styles of leadership. And what this does is it helps to kind of identify what kind of leadership are you doing right now from an application perspective. And actually, it was called the management grid, again, because of that conflation. And the one thing I'll say about this is I still think about this grid all the time. I think about, am I trying to achieve the status quo? Am I pushing for sound or team alignment? Am I trying to align everyone and make sure that we're all like bringing our whole selves and leading as a team? If I'm analyzing other styles, hopefully I'm not falling into this. Like, are we in a country club right now, or are we in like a dictatorship, produce or perish? And I'll tell you, in the academic environment, you find both. And so, just to be honest, but I love to think this isn't something I believe is very prescriptive, but it is a fantastic analytical tool. And I still think about it all the time. Question?
जब मैम का सेशन है उनके टीचर्स.
Oh, I was excited. I'm ready for a question. Okay.
So what kind of, I have a question. What kind of behavioral leadership in this grid?
Yeah.
Well, I think there is some traditional for each type of sector, for factories, I don't know, for academic setting, we have a certain type that's more common, probably dictatorial. Accommodating, maybe it depends on the research or the field you're working on.
Yeah.
Because there's some pressure, right? You gotta publish the paper. There's a lot of pressure, like not so country club vibes.
Yeah, so I see a lot of parental style or paternalistic style where it essentially bounces between dictatorial and accommodating.
Oh, yeah.
And I also see a lot of opportunistic where people are doing whatever works to move them forward too. But then I also see some sound and some status quo, which are kind of like, those are the two that you want to be along this spectrum. You don't, this is the area you want to be in terms of how well you're doing. And the status quo would be for those things that don't matter, and the sound would be for those things that really do, right? And if you're falling more in this direction, then it may be that there's something in your system, would be the argument, that you need to adjust. The leadership styles analysis was based off of the idea that people had a certain innate style. And so, yeah, you see all of them.
And this sound, it doesn't sound very sustainable for a long term. I don't know, because it feels like there's a lot of I don't know, energy demand. It's very demanding kind of system to keep the pressure and be accommodating at the same time.
People do it, and they do it really well when the sound is about aligning that people system and getting people into the right roles where they really flourish with the right systems of support. It's definitely supportable, but it is held back by
The environment.
stifling bureaucracy and a lack of trust. Oftentimes when you have really low trust environments, it's very hard to achieve. So when we'll get into more of that, but you're right. It's hard. It's hard. No matter what, it's hard. Doing it right usually requires a bit of luck too.
Great.
So, well, then there was the 70s situational leadership, which is all about how to move people from excited but knowing nothing to fully actuated and owning the work. And that is this path. It's pretty cool. Very, very much loved for the supervisory leadership education. It's still taught all over the place. There's also the transformational leadership. And this is the one that I think arguably has stood the test of time. And the idea is that you can use transactional leadership. Again, this is a super old world view, and we're going to talk in a minute about how I don't necessarily agree with this. But there is this old world view where if you do contingent reward, which is contingent on doing the work, you get money. Like that's contingency, right? And management by exception, where you say, as long as you do it within this quality and these constraints, you're good. Then you end up with transactional leadership. That's a transaction leadership design. But if you can add in, and that gets you expected outcomes, but if you can add in this idea of modeling the way to be and inspiring with a great vision and stimulating people with great new ideas and providing a clear sense of care and support and actually giving a damn about your people, then you'll end up with this transformation of the team. And this is the embodiment, I think, of the belief that we need leaders to make our people better. And so again, that is something that I think that people are still very much akin, they feel tied to it. And I think in situations where you have a lot of trauma and damage in an organization, these are still valuable ways of leading groups. So we talked about the four major styles of traditional leadership that kind of culminate in transformational. Any final comments on or questions about traditional before we move on to modern? Is this a useful review, by the way, or do we? I mean, so first, this, by the way, is totally a free format. I'm not dictating how we should do this. I just want to make sure that, are you all finding this useful? Can you give me like a little bit of like a thumbs up or a yes in the chat just to let me know? All right, cool.
I like that. Thumbs up.
Sweet. I appreciate the feedback.
Low effort feedback.
Yeah. Great.
And it's, I got a question. This traditional, it is still like very common, right? Like this is the, I don't know, 90% of this most established corporations, companies we have out there. I don't know, at least in Brazil, I can tell you that's we're still using this model as a standard here for most of the business. Even startups, I've worked for some Brazilian startups, and they still kind of following the same patterns that we have. You know, like, guys, you are starting a startup. That's a startup. You should do something different. You know, like, so it's kind of frustrating because I've been studying Lean for a while, and it's like there's so much stuff out there.
Yes. Well, and you know, the issue, it's really baked into a lot of our cultures from a couple of biases that exist in our mind. One is this sense that we're in control, or we want to be in control of the things around us, and not having a good innate understanding of system dynamics. Another is that we believe that there's also a little bit of this belief that there is, and this is true, there is like an emotional contagion that we can put into others. We can make people happy or sad, and there's a lot of ways in which taking this worldview makes you feel like you're in control, and like a leader can control us to our destiny. And then also allows us to kind of put it in their hands to get us where we need to go. And it allows us to give up our responsibility. And of course, we have so many that, you know, there's this, you know, it's a little bit like a religion.
It took them so long, right, to get to this position and get all the emotional intelligence, the right traits. And now you're telling that they should give up on this. Like, this is hard to let go.
Yeah. So let's talk about all the really great arguments why that's not how it works. So we've moved from this because of globalism and the information age, because of the lean movement, because of the fact that we have this understanding now that, you know, leadership is not divine right. It's not necessarily that people are given, are blessed with, and I apologize, this is slightly political, but the modern belief is that people are not blessed with the right to rule, and that there is more of a process by which we identify and select our leaders who are right for the time and place. And so all of these movements of like people-driven government and influences of empowering those who do the work to own the work, and the fact that we have to compete and do better, we don't simply partition resources within our bounds as determined by government. It's just changed everything. So what we have found is that instead of this idea that you have a leader that tells the follower what to do and influences them because they are big, bad, and bold, it's actually much more of a process of influence. I influence you, you influence me. And so that includes all of these different styles of leadership. It includes followership. It includes adaptive, spiritual, authentic, servant, which is super popular. We're going to talk about that. But this is understanding systems and understanding people and understanding that we don't have a single directional influence. And so to understand this better, we have to talk about power and how power is changing. So we talk about a couple different types of power. Referent power. I like you, therefore I want to hang out with you, follow you. Expert power, someone who knows what they're talking about, and we follow them. They have certain knowledge and expertise. Legitimate power is someone who's given that expertise by a government or something along those lines. They are put in a position. We see that a lot in traditional groups. We see that all over the place in academia. Reward power is where someone can give you something for doing something for them. It's, not to be confused with a bribe, but we oftentimes bribe our kids. And then coercive power, the ability to threaten to get what you want. And informational power, the ability to lead because you have some information that others need. And information is really powerful, right? So when you understand these different types of power, we can then take a look at how power dynamics are changing. And it's really because of the fact that power was in the domain of leaders who were given a position through someone who had authority. Now through free open societies, we see a decrease in that kind of legitimate power, and information power is now being distributed to everybody. We are making it illegal to abuse our workers, and we're making it harder to keep employees. And so we're competing reward power. So what does that mean, along with the fact that the world is more complicated and we need expertise, is that positional power, legitimate reward, coercive, and information, has now given way to personal power, where you are either an expert or I like you. And that is, if there's ever a reason why we want to deal with the messy garbage that is democracy, this is a reason. So that kind of change, and the information age is really driving this too, is huge. And so we understand that the jobs we do today are complex. I mean, this is true for even manufacturing. Like someone might say, oh, well, manufacturing and packing people, they're just doing stuff on the line. But it's complicated. There's a lot of expertise in doing all the jobs of building things today. So the information on what works exposes the limits of positional power, because the workers quickly figure out that the person who's overseeing their work doesn't know as much about it as they do, and they should really be listening to them about it. And when you look across the world, you see this move to a services economy, and that, again, services are all specialty jobs, and so the person who's doing the work knows more. And this is a really great quote provided by Peter Drucker, and he did a lot of envisioning of the future, but he said, for once beyond the apprentice stage, knowledge workers must know more about their job than their boss does, or else they are no good at all. So if you aren't smarter than your boss, that's a problem when it comes to doing your job in the information age. And so we saw the power of this in the 1980s in particular with the machine that changed the world. And that's what we got from Toyota. And Toyota was a legacy of the total quality movement, and also an infusion of that legacy with the quality values that existed in Japanese culture as well. And that led to the lean movement and this idea that we have to empower and grow our employees so that they continue to make our company better. And we need to engage in continuous improvement in management that works to serve its employees. So a quick summary of the Toyota way is think long-term, the right process produces the right results, and you have to empower employees to improve that process with continuous improvement, and you add value by developing your people. And one of the great quotes that that I heard from somebody who actually worked at Toyota when I was talking with them about this is that when they got promoted, the first thing they say is, I don't know what to do with all these people working for me now. I feel like I have so much that is on my plate. And the person, their leader said, no, you don't understand. It's not that you have so many people working for you now, it's that you're working for so many people. And that was a total mind shift for her. And she's like, yes. And that was in her first promotion. I'm sure she had that mind shift for the rest. So evidence that this works. Evidence that this is actually better than traditional is in the Southwest Airlines performance year over year from 1972 to 2002, growing at a rate of 26% per year, the fastest growing stock on the S&P 500. And then half of the Forbes top 100 best companies to work for do servant leadership, which is the leadership style. So if you want proof it works, it's all over. It's all over the place. And we talked a little bit about some really cool examples where a team process beats individual properties, like the Centaur chess example from 2005, the OODA loop, where U.S. fighters in the Cold War had planes that weren't as good as the Russian planes, but they had a bubble cockpit and they could figure out and fight better, more quickly, because they had a better design that enabled the person flying it to be a better fighter versus having a better fighter jet. They also had the P-51 Mustang, a cheap plane, but it was so cheap that people could learn how to fly it. And so it was about, again, empowering the people, not building the most powerful tool. And as a result, they worked as a team. And if you looked at the examples that actually led to the infusion of Scrum with its approach of how teams can beat individuals, it's that, you know, there were teams of 8 that were outpacing teams of 50 in building software. When they did this study out of Bell, they looked at the work coming out of Bell Labs and others in the 1980s and 90s. And they saw that while the best coders could be 10 times faster than the average coder, the best teams were 2,000 times faster than the average team. And so it really is about a team process. And if you want to know how to really influence a team, you need to design the environment. And I talk about that in the lesson as well. I don't want to soak this up with rehashing the lesson. So just, these are great stories. They're in the lesson. Some is design the environment to encourage the behavior you want in your team. That is the summary of modern leadership. It's probably my favorite lesson. That's why I took so long on it. Quick discussion on that. I see some good chatter going on.
I
Anybody?
think this is the most powerful takeaway. It's about the environment, like, and also like the leader is not the process. I think for me personally, I would like to know everyone's opinion. What is the takeaway from this week? What the most impactful thing for you?
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. So have a little pause in the review. Maybe it's better for us to do it this way.
There's some really great stuff in here, and you're moving really quickly. I'm wondering if there's going to be a chance for us to go back and, you know, dig in and learn more about what's in each of these slides. Are we going to be able to be shared in on these slides, or is there another place we can go to get access to where this information is going to be?
Yeah, well, actually, if you go on to edX and you sign up for the Modern Product Leadership course for free, you can watch the video that goes over this at more of a regular pace. I'm going at it as a review pace. So in general for this forum, we are reviewing the lessons of the first week of that edX course. It's only 5 lessons. They're like 10 or 15 minutes each. So you can consume it in about an hour and a half, but I don't jump through the slides really fast, and you can play it at whatever speed you want.
Fantastic. Thank you. Fabio just put it in the chat.
Cool. Yep. So,
okay, so I have a question. Can I ask it?
yes, go for it.
Okay, so I was wondering that when you displayed that leadership graph, right? So like we all know that dictatorship is not a really good kind of leadership, right? But there are some people who would prefer it. So in a team, where the team consists of different type of people and different type of personalities, and some leadership style may suit to them and some leadership style may not to suit to them. So how often should a leader should switch between the personalities? Either he should do it or not, like switch between the personalities or switch between the styles to, you know, keep the team together or to produce better outputs from the whole team. Or should we select the team by likewise and keep your style or keep your way as firm as it is?
It's a great question. So my recommendation would be actually to follow the agile in the product approach, because of the fact that they kind of combine together to allow the team to decide for itself how it wants to move forward as a team to achieve the goal. And I think that so switching between styles, you know, if you're in an environment where people don't know yet how to own the work because of the fact that they have been told what to do in their careers so often, you may have to spend some time coaching them out of being in that kind of a mindset. And that requires, I think, a little finesse to get people to own the work. But the way you do that is actually, we go over that a little bit more later in the course. The way you do that is you create a sense of psychological safety. And you make it very clear that you're not going to give them work in a batch size you're not going to give them work in a size and without support and testing that if they fail, it's over and they're done. You have to create the work in a way that it is safe for them to fail, and it's safe for them to try things and experiment a little bit and then learn and get better, and that you really want to hear from them and you're not just giving that lip service. So there's always some work to get through that, and we teach them later in this course. We teach a few lessons on that. Once you have people in that mindset, now the fun begins, because it really begins, because now everybody is kind of is for themselves as part of this team, figuring out, how do we want to run this? How do we want to run this? And it's a totally different way of getting things done. And that is kind of the fusion of agile and product. Product is about vision and road mapping and evangelizing in a really great way, but also requires some good negotiation and authentic negotiation skills. And then we teach that here. There's also kind of the agile leadership styles to it, which is about facilitation. So the answer I would say is try to move your people away from this belief that they need to be told what to do so that they own their work, and then let your team figure out for itself how it wants to move forward, and you facilitate that.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, it's a challenge though. Sometimes you can have some really big cultural barriers to overcome, especially if you have environments where people are part-time doing piecework, things like that, where they're not really owning the results and feeling like they identify with it. So that requires some more, actually in many ways that requires more visioning, but also maybe a different way of hiring people as well, which is potentially outside your control. So you may have to default back to a few traditional techniques every once in a while.
Yeah, the things like this are, a little bit hard to work in this corporate. For example, you're leading a team which requires a little bit of personal guidance in cooperation with the work. So it's a little bit hard to explain for corporate culture to accept the fact that they don't even, they, along with the working on the product, they have to work on the personality guidance as well to, just mold the team to be in the right place. And that requires a lot of time and effort, basically a lot of time.
Yeah, and some caring about the people there, but it's worth it because the performance goes way up. So it's work up front, but it's good work up front that you'll pay for if you don't do it.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we're all paying for it every day, but we don't do it. Any other comments or questions about real world application?
I have a question. Have you ever participated in the process of transitioning the company from the traditional model to agile?
Yes.
Can you share that? This, like, how was the process? How long did it take?
Yeah, it can take a while. And I do it all the time because I have a part-time team of people from all over the world who are at the University of Maryland who work on our team to help build courses. And oftentimes I have to make it very clear and encourage them, the people who are coming, usually they're graduate students from outside the United States who have joined and they're here full-time on like an F1 visa. I can encourage them to speak up and tell me if they're in trouble, or do they need some help, or to be very, sometimes I have to make it very clear that I'm going to set the goal, here are the constraints, but I really want to hear from them how they want to go about solving it. And sometimes there's frustration at the beginning because they're like, oh, just tell me what you want and I will do it. And I'm like, look, I can tell you how to do it. Okay. It's not that I don't know how to do it. I can probably do it 10 times faster than you easily, but it's not my work. I have other work to do. This is your work. I need you to get good at this. And you're not going to learn it if I do it for you. So let me help you along the way. And so that's a small example. A big example is over at the National Archives, where we did a huge agile transformation. And that agile transformation ran into a lot of traditional mindsets. And the best thing is just to offer the invitation for people to come join you and to see the progress that you're making. It's all based on positive improvement. And so if you keep things positive, you can win. And there's a whole, there's, like I said, if you want to learn more about really transitioning from traditional to agile leadership styles, what I work on in this course is in particular negotiations and being the person that is there's some transformational work that comes in week 3. As well as understanding personal motivation. So we talked a little bit about that here, but doing the agile transformation isn't really the goal of this course. What the goal of this course is setting the environment and the vision and identifying the right kinds of teams to go forward and perform really great product work. And we talk a little bit about working with stakeholders. It's a little bit more outside oriented versus inside oriented. But you got to make it open and you have to make it an invitation and you have to make it positive. You can't get there you can't beat people up into being empowered.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Why don't you want to work harder? Right? The beatings will continue until morale improves.
It's like you have to share the dream and inspire everyone because it's lots of work to do, right?
And you have to, and people have to select it for themselves. If they're not ready for whatever reason, you can help them if you're close to them as a coach or a team leader. But sometimes you got to let people approach on their own time. And you can't fight the train. I mean, the reality is that we all are going to have to work this way if we want to be really competitive. It's either that or we have to work for a lot less money. And I'd rather just have a really great workplace.
Yeah.
That's a different course. Sorry, hi.
Hey.
Like, is that another course that you're teaching, Agile Lead, or is that another module that we have to get to?
Okay, this is a huge topic, and this course is this course on modern product leadership focuses on envisioning, leading the team with negotiating through a little bit of transformational techniques, but mostly about working with stakeholders and helping to guide a team as a product owner or manager of a really great. There is another series which is on Agile, which is all about being the facilitator in chief of the team. And so if that's where you want it, you need both. So it's good you're here because you're going to get a lot of stuff here that I think is actually
You need a lot more than both, I guarantee you.
Yeah, you need more than that too.
Yeah, I guess I'm a bit scary looking.
Hey, I'm so happy to see you.
Not as happy as I am.
Yeah, so
this course for when you have an organization that is all volunteer and trying to change the world with it.
Ooh, yeah, that sounds like managing volunteers is not easy. Yes, well, this I would say of the 2 courses, I would be here to start if you wanted to find some things that maybe help to enhance what you already know, because this is all about bringing people together around a vision. I mean, that's what this is. This course really focuses on that a lot.
Yeah, we
yeah,
have some questions in the chat. But from Girish.
Okay.
Girish, do you want to elaborate further on the question? If you can talk, you can open your mic. Okay. How can we use product management in robotics? I think, yeah.
Oh, well, I would say that people are doing that right now. And the goal is that we need to think about robotics as being the extension, the output of a team of people who are designing and building those robotics and supporting those robotics. So think of the whole system. We're going to talk a little bit more about that kind of systems level thinking in this course as well. But there's also a lot of that in the last one, the one that comes before this in the series. But the main thing would be that if you're the product manager of a team that's working on robotics, then they need to be thinking about the customer that is using it, and they also need to be working together to solve those complex problems and figure out how to make something that is competitive and sustainable. So to do that really well, you need to lead that team really effectively as a product manager. And so that's what this course should help you with, creating that vision and setting those goals, and working through also the stakeholders involved, because robotics has a lot of concerns. You've got regulatory concerns, you've got integration concerns, you've got all kinds of different stakeholders at play, and you've got to negotiate that too. So this will help you with all levels, from visioning and road mapping to negotiating with stakeholders to setting the ultimate agenda and organizing your team. You'll get all of that. Make sense? Minimum, well, we can get into some playing around on those kinds of things. I think for now, let's. I'm happy to chat later about getting into more how do we define a good MVP. That again, that does come in this course. But let's focus on the lessons of this week for today.
Yeah.
And I'm going to jump back into Agile leadership real quick, which is just to help us kind of move along. We have two forces at play with Agile leadership, which is basically the pinnacle, in my opinion, of the modern leadership movement. You need to facilitate really well, and you need to serve the team by creating powerful environments that help move the team towards this shared purpose. So just so everyone is on the same page, Agile is codified in the 2001 Agile Manifesto, but Agile was actually in strong development in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So this is not something that happened in 2001. It is something that was codified, i.e. given a shape that we can all agree about in 2001, but it was a result of the work in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So the idea is that this work is done by people, and it's our interactions that allow us to be creative and solve problems. That is much more important than having fixed processes and tools to control our work. That we want working systems, not just a comprehensive set of documentation about what that system should be, because of the fact that the goal is to produce something of value, not to document what we did. We also want to collaborate with customers, because this sale or this contract is not your last contract. It is the one you're working on right now. You have a long-term relationship with the people that you are serving in the very social thing that we do, that is commerce and business, right? It's like the most social thing is the exchange of goods and services. So we have to consider this as a lifetime relationship with whoever it is that we're serving, and not focus on just this contract. And we need to respond to change versus fixing the plan at the very beginning, because the market's changing, the opportunities are shifting, the technology is getting better, all of those things. Now, all this stuff on the right is really important still to do, but we should prioritize those things on the left because they have much more value. And traditional approaches do the opposite. So this is just a statement that kind of captures our belief system. And the way we do that is with the least number of meetings, the most empowered design that we can get to, which is the Scrum. And here you start with a person who is planning, who is looking at the work, getting it ready for the next time period. and that is the product owner or manager. That's you if you're a product manager. They then offer that list of potential work to a team that picks what's going to form a really good increment to hand over to a customer to get feedback. That becomes a sprint backlog. Then you go into a development period of time where there's only really a daily meeting and everything else is about getting the work done. And that daily meeting is blocking and tackling. And then, you know, product backlog refinement continues. So it's ready for the next week. And then at the end, you review what you did and you get better as a team. And you also improve your planning for the product. And if you do that, then there's really just 3 roles: the Scrum Master, who's the facilitator, the product owner, who is the product manager, and then the team member. And so this course is all about how to lead as a product manager. We have others that are about this role. And this role is the role that, frankly, all of us are in at some point. And that's your team. And so it's all designed around plan, do, check, and act, which is the TQM model. Actually, it was plan, do, study, act in TQM, but that's fine. We call it plan, do, check, act because that's how it was popularized. And the way that this works is that the product owner is doing all this facilitating with all the stakeholders, and the Agile PM, who may sometimes be a shared role, but really it should be a separate group, is trying to facilitate and empower all these things to happen. And this role has a lot of negotiation work. And again, I've said that a couple of times today. That's why we focus there. If you want to focus more on people transformation and team leadership, that's what this role is all about. But both are needed. And from what I've seen, we have a lot of facilitative leaders, but we don't have enough people who understand how to negotiate the external constraints and move a team forward in its environment that's external to the team. And I think that's really important. So that's why this course was built. So the model around servant leadership is that if you have authentic actions and intentions, then you will meet the needs of others, you will do what's needed for them. And as a result, intrinsically, you gain authority, and that allows you to then set rules. And what this does is, what we're really talking about is that if you have great character and you're trying to do the right thing, then you'll be able to help the team establish how it wants to operate. And this bottom-up approach to authentic authority is really important, as opposed to top-down, de jure, I tell you to do this because I'm your boss kind of authority. So we need to facilitate decisions then on our team, because we're not going to make them all, because we know that our team members have more information than we do. And that's the reason why we go through a series of steps to enable decision making with planning, organizing, controlling, and actuating. So again, the point here is that we want to lead with authenticity. We want to engage our team, and we want to use restraint in how we go about doing this, so that it really is the team that chooses its own destiny to achieve the work they agree to do. So then we have this dichotomy of facilitating what's the right next thing to do and how to change our processes, and also enforcing those rules that we agree to, and serving the needs of the team by getting things addressed. And so that's kind of the wrap up of the Agile leadership. And I just want to combine it real quick to say that the next lesson is all about product leadership. It talks about how we need to achieve this vision with empowered teams and autonomy. And then we also need to be able to provide a backlog and design whole teams and run good sprint demos and retros. And we should do so with this set of principles that it starts with satisfying the customer. We want to try to be in face-to-face as much as possible and empower our team. And then we want to always focus on quality and having teams make decisions and regularly reflect and improve. One of my favorite quotes is actually this quote, which I ran into reading Jeff Sutherland's book. And I feel like and he didn't take it himself. It was actually from the US Marine Corps Field Manual. All right, talk about a group that if they're going to be authoritarian, right, you think military. That's not true. I worked in the military for like 7 years. That's not how they work. But they say an individual's responsibility for leadership is not dependent on authority. The deep-rooted assumption that authority should equal responsibility is the root of much organizational evil. That is just an amazing thing to have from the Marine Corps field manual. It's just pretty cool. So this whole idea that we're all responsible for achieving the goal, it's on all of us. And leadership is anybody's responsibility at any given time to pick up and do. So we want people to emerge as leaders. And that's kind of stop sharing. That's kind of the whole kit and caboodle of what we're kind of framing up, right? Leadership in the context of this course. And
So
we'll
is
talk
it-
about how to do it.
Is it kind of shared responsibility for all the members? All
Yes.
The team members?
Yes, and you have authority as a product manager over a few things, right? You have authority over the backlog, over
Mhm.
the interactions with the stakeholders. That's authority that you have because, frankly, we need a single person to really be that role, and to consider all perspectives. And so we're going to focus on the responsibilities to lead in that function in this course. But it's everyone's responsibility on the team to make sure that we actually deliver on the promises that we're making as a team. That we're going to build something really great, and that the customers are going to love it, and the business can support it, and people are going to find it useful and beautiful. And that's on all of us.
So in that case, nobody's going to be held accountable for any individual mistake, let's say, okay, because it was a team's decision. Everyone decided as a team that was the best. And if something bad happens, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
like, it's
Yeah,
everybody's call.
well, there's no hiding inside of a team.
Yeah.
You can't hide inside of a transparent team. So there's no, some people might say, oh, but what about holding people accountable for their part? The
Yeah,
whole
that
team
was
sees what you're doing. You can't hide. I can tell every day if you show up and you're like, I'm still working on it. And we're like, God, this should have taken you like an hour. Why are you still working on it? You can't hide in this transparent, open, empowered environment. You can't do it. And then so people and the social pressure it's amazing. It's amazing to see what happens when you put people on the same team and you can't hide anymore, and then see how quickly people shape up.
But let's say I do some type of work that takes me like 4 hours a day. And then I'm scared, I'm frightened that my boss is gonna find out that I'm working just 4 hours. Actually, I'm working just like 4 hours a day. Like this transparency is something that scares people to join this philosophy.
Just
like,
because it takes you 4 hours doesn't mean it's worth 4 hours. Cost does not equal value.
okay, that's a good one.
It's a true one. Also, we don't want to run our teams at max capacity. That's bad traditional leadership. I talk about that in some other places, but there isn't a factory in the world where they run all the machines all the time. You know what an infinitely busy process has in front of it? An infinitely long queue of work that never gets done. I'm serious. It's queuing theory 101. The queue is inversely proportional to utilization rate. As your utilization rate goes to 100%, the queue becomes infinite, and I can never get anything through you. So I don't want you to be 100%. What I want you to be is a productive member of the team, and I'm going to evaluate you as a team. So if you do 4 hours of work a day, and this 5-person team is achieving 50x productivity, fine.
Okay, that's a good one.
So,
If the leaders, the CEO is aware of that numbers, because that's something I think you can easily find out in any job. We don't actually work like 8-9 hours a day. We like to think we work that much, effectively, but we don't. Of course, I don't think it's feasible in the long run.
No, 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 no. And the reality is that your 4 hours, maybe my 6 hours, maybe somebody else's 3 hours. But
Yep.
at the same time, you may need that time to recharge or to go
Exactly.
deliver a class central cohort.
Maybe work faster, but you need more time to recharge. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is an opportunity for me to recharge. Talking with all of you about this has been a lot of fun. We're at the end of our hour. I hope that next week, please go ahead and watch the lessons and come in and badger me with questions. I'm ready to talk with you and learn from you too. And I'll also be on the boards as well.
So that's homework.
That's homework, just if you want to get the most out of it.
Definitely. Yeah. And the week 2, what we are covering? The week 2? I haven't.
Week
look
two
yet.
is all about motivating the team. So we're going to get into things like mastery, autonomy, and purpose, how to frame the purpose, build psychological safety, and protect focus. So we're getting a little bit into that team management stuff. It'll be good.
Perfect.
Oh, I better hurry up and do my prep.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you so much. What a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing everybody next week. I'm going to go ahead and end the session now because I have another meeting I have to go to.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Gaurav, Girish, Frank.